Good afternoon. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Career Launchers YT channel for law aspirants. We are looking at reading comprehension passages which will be useful for you for CLAT 2026. If you've been following this series, you will know that we have passages based on the CLAT question paper but based on different genres, exactly like you get in CLAT. So if you practice with me well before the exam, by the time you come to taking the test, you would have aced the main section of CLAT, which is reading comprehension, whether it is English, logical reasoning, or even general knowledge. All right, let's start. This passage I have taken from the Hindu. It is based on culture, it is about reactions to obscenity, perversity on YouTube, and whether there should be laws and regulations on it. The passage is about 417 words long, so it's around the same length as your CLAT passage, maybe a little longer. If you're watching a recording of this, when I show you the screen, pause the video so that you can read the passage on your own. After that, for the questions also, pause the video, solve the question on your own, and then again play it. Okay. All right, let's start. I will start by reading and summarizing the passage. In suggesting that the government should come up with regulatory measures to prevent vulgarity or perversity in the name of humor being aired, the Supreme Court has expanded the scope of petitions by YouTubers caught in a criminal case over alleged obscenity in a digital program. What does it mean? That the Supreme Court has suggested that the government should come up with regulations to prevent vulgarity in the name of humor. And in doing this, the Supreme Court has expanded the scope of petitions that YouTubers can raise. This is about petitions against YouTubers who were caught in a criminal case because allegedly the program that they put up on YouTube was obscene. The court has sounded the right note. So the author says that the court is correct. It has sounded the right note by calling for a discussion among stakeholders on regulations that would not impinge on the freedom of speech and expression and will be within the framework of reasonable restrictions permitted in the Constitution. Now, what is the biggest problem with any kind of regulations on anything that is said, written, or shown on television? We have freedom of speech and expression. It's not absolute, it is conditional. What is the conditions? That the Constitution permits reasonable restrictions on our expression, right to speech and expression. So the court, according to the author, the court has done the right thing that in suggesting that the stakeholders, people who are putting up programs on YouTube, people who are complaining that it is obscene, they should come to a discussion, right? And any regulations that you put on freedom of speech and expression should be within the scope of reasonable restrictions in the Constitution. You can't just restrict anything and everything, right? Now, here the author comes up with, however, whenever you come across this word, be careful because this is where the author expresses doubts. However, such regulations may be superfluous, they may be unnecessary, right? Why? Existing laws provide for dealing with possible obscenity or vulgarity in electronic and digital content. We already have enough regulations against obscenity and vulgarity in electronic and digital content. So the author says, what new regulations can the courts or the government come up with? That those associated with the controversial program India's Got Latent are facing FIRs and have sought protection from arrest show that the present regulations may be sufficient. Now, there is this program called India's Got Latent. You must have heard of it, became very controversial. And those associated with the program, the person who aired his views, which were objected to, the people who made the program, all of them have sought protection from arrests. So the author is saying the very fact that they are taking all these measures to see that they're not arrested, to see that they're protected, shows that there are regulations and these regulations are working. Under the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita (BNS), display of content in electronic form shall be deemed to be obscene if it is lascivious, appeals to prurient interest. Basically, if it is obscene, okay, and is a punishable offense. So if you show something which is lewd, which is vulgar, which is obscene, which may be considered obscene, it is punishable. It is a punishable offense. We already have a regulation like that. Similar penal provisions are available in the IT Act. The program code under the cable television network rules prohibits programs that offend decency, among other things. So you have rules that you cannot show programs which offend decency. You have rules in the BNS, you have rules in the IT Act, cable television network. There are regulations which are there against showing possible obscenity. So the author believes that Supreme Court asking for regulatory measures may be superfluous. What more regulations can be put? The IT Information Technology Intermediary Guidelines Digital Media Ethics Code 2021 provides for age-based classification and the three-tier system of grievance redress, which users could approach the platform, a self-regulatory body, and a government interdepartmental committee. So, if there is a program and somebody has a grievance against the program, there is a three-tier system of grievance redressal. So, users can approach YouTube, can approach a self-regulatory body, and a government interdepartmental committee. This is the hierarchy to redress the grievances. The debate between clean and dirty humor is age old. Now, who's going to decide what is clean humor and what is dirty humor? So, this debate, what humor is healthy and what humor is indecent, that is the basic difference between clean and dirty humor. This debate is age old. It's been going on from a long time. But the distinction is well understood. It is only in the context of public outrage over specific instances of obscenity and vulgarity that voices are raised about the need to maintain decency and morality. When there is public outrage of certain instances of, so most cases people know what is good humor, what is dirty humor, and and measures are taken. But when there is mass, the entire public is outraged, when there is some specific instance of obscenity and vulgarity, that voices are raised. People know the difference. People, there is still programs that are going on. But when a voice is raised, when there is a public outrage about specific instances, that is when everybody says, "Oh yeah, yeah, there should be decency and morality." In this case, in the particular instance, the folly of the participants in making sexually perverse comments is matched by the zeal of the complainants and the complainants and the police. On the one side, the participants in the show made some terrible comments. Second, the public was so outraged, and the police are also actively pursuing this case. Mainly, mainly, why is this happened? How did this public outrage happen? Because the content was leaked outside a paying audience. It became public. Then the outrage came. The participants may have thus rendered themselves vulnerable to prosecution, but a mature society should consider whether anyone should go to prison for a verbal offense. He said something. If you're really mature, you think he said something obscene, okay, fine, blacklist him and say shouldn't do it in the future. Do you really think you need to be prosecuted, go to prison for that? The tendency to get the police to file FIRs whenever somebody complains is also to be deprecated. Sitting and filing FIRs, the police have so much other work to do. Is also this tendency has to be deprecated, has to be criticized. The internet's universal reach should not become an excuse to confer universal jurisdiction. Correct? The internet has universal reach, but the internet should not have universal jurisdiction. If it's something, if it's meant for a paid audience, okay, somebody said something obscene, that's it. It was leaked, which is why it became a public outrage. So the whole thing has been blown out of proportion. That's what the author says. This often takes the case to the court, as those named in such FIRs want multiple cases to be clubbed, leading to attention and a widening of the debate. So, people who want attention would now make multiple cases, multiple FIRs. They want attention, they want the debate to be widened. An extreme case such as this does evoke extreme reactions. Okay, this is an extreme case. There are extreme reactions, but one has to be mature. According to the author, law enforcement and legal institutions should not be overzealous in their response. After all, it was a verbal comment, it's a verbal offense. Does it really require such huge punishments? All right, clear. Let's now look at the questions. It can be inferred that the author's views on new regulations to prevent vulgarity is that what does the author think? The excuse me, the Supreme Court has suggested that the government should impose new regulations to prevent vulgarity. Correct? Now, the author, excuse me, what does the author say about it? What can you infer about the author's views on new regulations? They are crucial and need to be imposed at the earliest. No. What does the author say? They would be a form of moral policing and go against the spirit of the Constitution. As he says, as long as there are regulations within the reasonable restrictions stipulated in the Constitution, it's fine. So he's not mentioned anything about moral policing. They are unnecessary as we already have enough regulation. He has cited the different regulations in the IT Act, in the BNS, in some other act. We have enough regulations against uh, obscenity in the digital platform. So the correct answer is option C. The main topic of the passage can be best summed up by which of the following? Humor and perversity. It was a show where it was supposed to be humorous. Some India's got latent, but some of the comments made by the participants turned out to be perverse and obscene. Right? And the entire passage is based on the case, the Supreme Court suggestions of more regulations to prevent obscenity, in other words, perversity on digital media. So this is correct. Laws and regulations is too general. Okay, this is also general, but here at least it pertains to the program which is supposed to be humorous but turned out to be perverse. Moral policing and the constitution turns out to be too general. Irrelevant issues, not the option is irrelevant. Therefore, the best of the bad options is option A. What can be inferred from the following lines? It's only in the context of public outrage over specific instances of obscenity that voices are raised about the need to maintain decency and morality. Humor, people know the definition difference between good and dirty humor, but only when you sometimes have a particular instance when public is outraged do people just then start this discussion on morality and decency. So which option explains that best? Society consistently upholds decency and morality, then where would these voices be raised against specific instances? So that is wrong. The debate over obscenity and morality is driven by legal principles. Nothing about legal principles has been mentioned in this sentence. Concerns about decency and morality are primarily reactive. Only when there is a specific instance of public outrage, then only the whole debate surfaces. Therefore, C is the correct answer. Question 4. What can be concluded from the last paragraph of the passage? The last paragraph of the passage. Let's just quickly look at the last paragraph. It is only in the context of public outrage over specific instances of obscenity and vulgarity, that voices are raised about the need to maintain decency and morality. At other times, they're quiet. Only when there's a public outrage, then everybody says, oh, we need to maintain decency and morality. In this case, some of the participants were foolish to say something very terrible, and that was one side, but that is matched. Their stupidity is only matched by the zeal of the police. The police is also reacting, and all this happened because of content being leaked outside a paying audience. So he says the participants are vulnerable to prosecution because public has heard, the wider audience has heard what they said. But at the same time, the author is asking, do you think that a verbal offense like that is really punishable? with a prison sentence, right? We should not have this habit to keep filing FIRs against every little thing, right? That should be criticized. And internet has universal reach, but internet should not have universal jurisdiction. Don't give internet the power to have universal jurisdiction. It doesn't apply to every aspect of a person's life. So the people who are raising the voice in court want to widen the debate, but the government, the legal institutions, and law enforcement agencies and the police should be more tempered in their response. They should not be overzealous. So, what can be concluded from the last lines? The legal system often overreacts. Just because the author said the legal system should not overreact does not mean it often overreacts. The internet's reach should not be used as a justification for prosecuting content universally. Internet's reach is universal, but its jurisdiction, its area of authority should not be universal. Therefore, this is the correct answer. Participants should not, he did not say should not face legal consequences. It just says verbal offense. Does it really need a prison sentence? So, this is also an extreme form of what has been said. The Supreme Court should intervene in all cases of obscenity. Again, an extreme statement. Therefore, option B is the right answer. Excuse me. Which of the following assumptions is implicit? What is the author's assumption? The current legal framework is not insufficient. Double negative, not insufficient means sufficient to handle obscenity related issues. Yes, because he's saying, why do we need more regulations? We have enough regulations in place. So, what we have currently in our legal framework is sufficient. We don't need more regulations. So, A is an assumption implicit. Let's look at B. Public outrage is always irrational. Extreme word. He doesn't say it's always irrational. Government should never regulate digital content. Obscenity laws should be abolished. Again, he did not say anything about misuse. So this is irrelevant. Therefore, option A is the correct answer. Why is the expression reasonable restrictions used in prose? Reasonable restrictions imposed by the Constitution, author has put it in quotes. Why has it been put it in quotes? Because the term has a specific legal meaning. What are those really reasonable restrictions has been mentioned in the Constitution. Therefore, it has a specific legal meaning. What is reasonable has also been mentioned in the Constitution. It should not be against national security. It should not be a threat to public, and such restrictions. Those are correct. Okay, so therefore, this is the correct answer. To express skepticism, the author has not expressed any doubts about whether the restrictions are reasonable. He has used it because he says just the restrictions used in the Constitution to show that the term has a particular meaning within the framework of the Constitution. Therefore, B is the correct answer. Misuse has not been mentioned. Emphasize must always be strictly enforced. Again, an extreme statement. Therefore, option B is the correct answer. I hope you got all your questions right. Right? So, join me again, same time next week for another reading comprehension passage based on the CLAT pattern. Subscribe to our channel, like and share this video if you liked it. I will see you again very soon. Bye bye.